7 signs that someone dislikes you and is hiding it. Stoic philosophy. Have you ever felt that nagging feeling that someone doesn't quite like you, but they're trying hard to hide it? You know that uncomfortable sensation in your gut when their smile doesn't quite reach their eyes, when their compliments leave you feeling worse instead of better, when you're included in group activities but somehow still feel left out. You're not being paranoid, and you're not alone. In today's world where fake nice has become a social currency, it's harder than ever to know who genuinely supports you and who's just keeping up appearances. The masks people wear have become so sophisticated that sometimes we doubt our own instincts. But here's the truth. Understanding these hidden signs isn't just about avoiding toxic relationships. It's about protecting your peace of mind, preserving your energy, and most importantly, maintaining your dignity in a world that often confuses politeness with authenticity. Drawing from both modern psychology and ancient Stoic wisdom, I'm going to share with you 7 unmistakable signs that someone dislikes you but is hiding it. More importantly, I'll show you how to handle these situations with grace and strength, without letting them diminish your self-worth. What you'll learn today isn't just about identifying these signs. It's about developing the emotional intelligence to navigate complex relationships while staying true to yourself. You'll gain practical insights that will help you distinguish between genuine connections and superficial courtesies. If you've ever experienced that unsettling feeling of being subtly disrespected, comment 7 below. Let's see how many of us have dealt with these hidden dynamics in our relationships. Remember, recognizing these patterns isn't about becoming suspicious of everyone. It's about becoming wise enough to invest your energy in relationships that truly matter. Let's begin with the first sign, one that often hides behind the mask of humor. Sign 1. The masked mockery. When jokes carry hidden daggers. Have you ever laughed at a joke about yourself while feeling a subtle sting in your chest? That moment when everyone's laughing, but something feels off. When the smile on your face doesn't quite match the knot in your stomach. You're not alone in this experience. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." This wisdom becomes particularly poignant when we talk about one of the most subtle forms of social aggression. Mockery disguised as humor. Let me share something personal. 3 years ago, I was part of a high-performing team at a prestigious firm. There was this colleague, let's call him James, who had a particular talent for making jokes. He'd always have something to say about my presentation style. "Wow, you actually managed to keep everyone awake this time," followed by that trademark chuckle. Everyone would laugh, I would laugh too. But each time, something felt wrong. The thing about masked mockery is that it's designed to make you question yourself. You start wondering, am I being too sensitive? Can't I take a joke? Should I just man up and deal with it? Seneca offers us profound insight here. Whatever you do, do with all your might. This applies not just to our actions, but to our boundaries as well. When we recognize mockery for what it is, we must address it with the same conviction we bring to our other endeavors. But here's where it gets interesting, and where most people get it wrong. The solution isn't to become confrontational or to respond with similar behavior. Remember what Epictetus taught us. When you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings. Then you will forget your anger. Let me share how this situation with James evolved. Instead of getting defensive or retaliating, I took a different approach. After one particularly pointed joke, I calmly asked him, "What exactly do you mean by that?" The room grew quiet. For the first time, the mask slipped. You see, when you force someone to explain their joke, you expose the intention behind it. It's like turning on the lights in a dark room. Suddenly, everything becomes clear. Here's what I've learned about handling masked mockery. First, trust your instincts. If a joke makes you feel diminished, that's not coincidental. Your emotional response is valid. Second, Understand that consistent mockery, even in jest, is a form of social dominance. The person doing it is often struggling with their own insecurities. Third, and this is crucial, respond with dignity, not defense. When someone tries to diminish you through humor, they're expecting either submission or aggression. Give them neither. Instead, try these practical approaches. 1. Use the explain the joke technique. I don't quite understand what's funny about that. Could you explain? 2. Address it privately. I've noticed a pattern in your jokes. I want to understand what's really going on here. 3. Set clear boundaries. I appreciate humor, but comments about specific topic aren't acceptable. Remember what Marcus Aurelius taught us. How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it? This applies perfectly to how we handle masked mockery. What I discovered through my experience with James was transformative. When I finally addressed the situation with calm confidence, it didn't just change our dynamic, it changed the entire team's atmosphere. Others who had been silent about similar experiences began to speak up. The real power lies not in your ability to withstand mockery, but in your capacity to address it with wisdom and dignity. Think about it. How many times have you laughed along with jokes that actually hurt you? How often have you dismissed your feelings because you didn't want to seem too sensitive? Here's what I want you to remember. True strength isn't shown by how much mockery you can endure. It's demonstrated by how well you can maintain your dignity while setting healthy boundaries. As we move on to our next sign, consider this. The way people joke about you often reveals more about their character than it does about yours. And that's exactly what we'll explore in our next sign, when compliments carry hidden daggers. But before we move on, I'm curious. How many of you have experienced this kind of masked mockery? Drop a 1 in the comments if you've ever had to deal with someone who consistently joked at your expense. Sign 2, the velvet dagger. Compliments that cut deep. Wow, this is actually pretty good for someone like you. Have you ever received a compliment that felt more like a slap in the face? Those words that sound sweet on the surface but leave a bitter aftertaste. Let's talk about the art of the backhanded compliment, the velvet dagger that cuts deeper than any direct insult. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it?" This wisdom perfectly captures the nature of these subtle verbal weapons. The surface-level praise may seem minor, but the emotional damage it inflicts runs deep. To me, I remember sitting in a meeting room presenting a project I'd spent months perfecting. A colleague smiled warmly and said, "You've really exceeded everyone's low expectations." The room fell silent. That moment taught me something crucial about human nature and the power of disguised hostility. These verbal daggers often come wrapped in 3 layers. First, there's the surface compliment, the velvet exterior that makes it socially acceptable. Second, there's the hidden criticism, the sharp edge designed to cut your confidence. And third, there's the plausible deniability, the carefully crafted escape route that lets them say, "You're too sensitive," if you dare to call them out. Seneca tells us, "The truth hurts only once. A lie hurts twice, when it's told and when it's discovered." This applies perfectly to backhanded compliments. The initial sting hurts, but the realization of the speaker's true intentions hurts even more. But why do people choose this indirect route of expressing dislike? The answer lies in social dynamics. In our modern world, direct confrontation carries high social costs. So instead, people opt for these sophisticated forms of social aggression, ways to hurt you while maintaining their image of politeness. Here's what I've learned about handling these situations. When someone says, "You're so brave to wear that," or "You're smarter than you look," they're not just making an observation. They're attempting to establish dominance while maintaining plausible deniability. Epictetus provides guidance here. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This isn't just ancient wisdom. It's a practical strategy for maintaining your dignity. When faced with a backhanded compliment, you have 3 powerful options. 1. Direct confrontation. What exactly do you mean by that? Force them to explain their compliment. 2. Stoic deflection. Thank you for sharing your perspective. Then continue as if their words carried no weight. 3. Positive reframing. Yes, I am brave, and I love this outfit. Take their weapon and turn it into your shield. The key is not to let their words define your worth. Remember, as Marcus Aurelius taught, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. But here's what most people don't realize. These backhanded compliments often reveal more about the giver than the receiver. They're projections of insecurity, jealousy, or fear disguised as social grace. Think about it. When was the last time you gave a backhanded compliment? What were you really trying to say? Understanding this can help you respond with wisdom rather than reaction. I've learned to see these moments as opportunities for growth. Each backhanded compliment is a chance to practice emotional intelligence and strengthen your psychological boundaries. The next time someone offers you one of these velvet daggers, remember, their words are like arrows. They can only hurt if you let them pierce your armor of self-worth. Let me leave you with this thought. True compliments elevate both the giver and receiver. Anything less is not a compliment at all. It's a confession of the speaker's own limitations. As we move into our next sign, consider this. While backhanded compliments might sting, they're often just the prelude to more active forms of social exclusion. Let's explore how to recognize and handle those situations. But first, if you've ever received a backhanded compliment that still bothers you today, share it in the comments with VD for Velvet Dagger. Let's create a space where we can learn from each other's experiences. Sign 3. The social chess game. Strategic exclusion. Picture this. Your phone lights up with notifications. Your friends are sharing pictures of a gathering, one you knew nothing about. Your heart sinks as you scroll through the images, seeing all the familiar faces, except yours. It was last minute, they'll say later. But was it really? Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." This wisdom becomes particularly poignant when facing one of the most subtle forms of social rejection, strategic exclusion. Let me share something personal. 3 years ago, I was part of what I thought was a tight-knit professional circle. We shared lunches, celebrated wins, supported each other through challenges. Until I noticed a pattern. The lunch invites became less frequent. The after-work gatherings happened without me. "Oh, we thought you'd be too busy," became the standard response. Epictetus teaches us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. But let's be honest, recognizing and responding to strategic exclusion requires more than just philosophical resilience. It demands emotional intelligence and strategic thinking. Here's what's really happening. Strategic exclusion is a form of social chess where your opponents never declare their moves. They create distance while maintaining plausible deniability. It's the colleague who forgets to copy you on important emails, the friend group that plans events when they know you're unavailable, the subtle redistribution of social power that leaves you questioning your place. But why does this happen? Seneca provides insight. No one can wear a mask for very long. Those who engage in strategic exclusion often harbor insecurities, jealousies, or resentments they're unwilling to address directly. Instead of confronting issues, they choose the path of passive resistance. Have you ever noticed how exclusion often follows your successes rather than your failures? Think about that for a moment. The Stoic response isn't to succumb to paranoia or retaliate. Instead, consider these practical steps. First, document the pattern. Are these truly isolated incidents, or is there a consistent thread of exclusion? Look for the repetition, not the individual events. Second, evaluate the relationship's authenticity. As Seneca advised, associate with people who make you better. If you're consistently being excluded, perhaps these aren't the relationships worth preserving. Third, address it directly but strategically. Instead of accusation, try curiosity. I've noticed I haven't been included in recent gatherings. I'd appreciate understanding if there's a reason for that. Here's a powerful truth I learned through my experience. Sometimes, exclusion is a gift in disguise. It shows you exactly where you stand, allowing you to redirect your energy toward more authentic connections. Remember, those who need to exclude others to feel powerful are revealing their own weaknesses, not yours. The most stoic response to strategic exclusion isn't to fight for inclusion in spaces where you're not valued, it's to create spaces where genuine connections can thrive. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one. When I faced my own experience with exclusion, I didn't fight to regain my place at that lunch table. Instead, I built new connections based on mutual respect and genuine interest. Today, those relationships have proved far more valuable than the ones I thought I was losing. What's your power move in this social chess game? It's recognizing that you don't need to play at all. Your worth isn't determined by your inclusion in any particular group, but by your adherence to your own principles. The next time you feel the sting of strategic exclusion, ask yourself, is this a game worth playing, or is it time to create my own table? Remember, true connection can't be strategically manufactured, and real belonging can't be achieved through constant pursuit of inclusion. And speaking of authenticity in relationships, this leads us to our next sign. One that reveals itself not in group dynamics, but in one-on-one interactions. Sign 4. The time illusion. Selective availability. I'm just so busy these days. We've all heard those words. Sometimes they're genuine, but sometimes they're the polite fiction people use when they don't want to spend time with you. The truth: people make time for what they value. Everything else gets the busy excuse. As Marcus Aurelius wisely observed, the art of living is more like wrestling than dancing. You must stand ready and firm and make life not be a series of excuses. Let me share something personal. A few years ago, I had what I thought was a close friend. Every time I reached out to grab coffee, she was swamped with work. Yet there she was on Instagram, having brunch with other friends, attending concerts, living life to the fullest, just without me. For months, I made excuses for her. She must really be struggling with time management, I told myself, but deep down, I knew better. The Stoic philosopher Seneca had it right when he said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Here's what I've learned about selective availability. It's not about time, it's about priority. When someone consistently claims to be too busy for you while making time for others, they're not telling you about their schedule, they're telling you about their values. Think about it. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. When was the last time you were too busy to do something you genuinely wanted to do? When something matters enough, we find a way. We reschedule, we wake up earlier, we make it work. Epictetus put it perfectly. First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. But here's where it gets interesting, and where Stoic philosophy offers us profound guidance. The problem isn't that someone doesn't prioritize you. The problem is continuing to invest your energy where it's not valued. Let me break this down into practical terms. When someone is consistently too busy, they respond to your messages days later, but their social media shows real-time activity. They have time for group activities but never one-on-one meetings. Their excuses are vague and perpetual. They're mysteriously available in emergencies that benefit them. These aren't just patterns, they're messages. And understanding these messages is crucial for your emotional well-being. But here's what the ancient Stoics would want us to remember. Their behavior isn't about you, it's about them. Your worth isn't determined by someone else's availability. So what's the solution? First, stop chasing. As Seneca advised, the greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today. 1. Match their energy. If they're too busy, be too busy. 2. Invest in reciprocal relationships. 3. Create clear boundaries about your own time. 4. Focus on people who make time for you. Remember this crucial distinction. Being busy is a state of action. Being too busy is a state of choice. The most powerful response to selective availability isn't confrontation, it's redirection. Redirect your energy toward people who value your presence. Redirect your time toward relationships that energize rather than drain you. I eventually confronted my busy friend. The conversation was uncomfortable but necessary. She admitted she had been pulling away because our lives were moving in different directions. It hurt, but that honesty was far better than the slow torture of constant excuses. Think about your own relationships right now. Is there someone who's always too busy for you? How does it make you feel when you see them making time for others? The Stoic response isn't to become bitter or resentful. Instead, it's to see this situation as information, valuable data about where you stand and where you should invest your emotional energy. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. In this case, that means being clear, honest and direct in your own relationships. Here's the deep truth. When someone shows you that you're not a priority, believe them. Not to feel hurt, but to make better choices about where to invest your time and energy. Remember, your time is your life. Spend it with people who don't need to be convinced to spend theirs with you. Let's transition to our next sign, which reveals how physical distance often mirrors emotional distance. Sign 5. The physical barrier. Body language never lies. You know that moment when someone takes a subtle step back every time you come near, or when they stiffen at your friendly pat on the shoulder, even though you've seen them hugging others moments before. That slight flinch when you reach out for a handshake. The body never learned how to lie. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. And in the same way, our bodies become colored with the truth of our feelings, no matter how hard we try to hide them. Let me share a personal experience that opened my eyes to this profound truth. 3 years ago, I had a colleague, let's call her Sarah, who always greeted me with a perfect smile and polite words. On the surface, everything seemed fine, but something felt off. It started with small things, the way she would unconsciously lean away during our conversations, how she'd position her coffee mug or laptop as a barrier between us during meetings, the subtle way she'd cross her arms whenever I spoke in team discussions. Epictetus teaches us, it is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. I thought I was imagining things until I started paying closer attention to these physical cues. Here's what I discovered and what you need to watch for. First, observe their proxemics, the physical space they maintain. Do they consistently keep a larger distance from you compared to others? Are they always the first to step back from an interaction? But here's where it gets interesting, and where Stoic wisdom becomes particularly relevant. Seneca reminds us, the greatest power we have is the power of observation. Look for clusters of behaviors, not isolated incidents. Notice their micro-expressions during casual contact. When you reach for a document, do they quickly withdraw their hand? In group settings, do they position themselves as far from you as possible? These aren't coincidences, they're subconscious revelations. Think about your own experiences for a moment. Haven't you felt that instinctive physical reaction when someone you dislike enters your space? That's exactly what we're talking about, but from the other side. The Stoic perspective offers us a powerful framework for handling this. As Marcus Aurelius advised, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. When you notice these physical barriers, don't mirror them. Instead, maintain your dignity while respecting their space. Here's how to handle it with grace. 1. First, acknowledge the reality without taking it personally. Their physical response often has more to do with their own issues than with you. 2. Maintain appropriate distance without being obvious about it. Don't force physical proximity or contact. 3. Focus on making your presence neutral and non-threatening. Keep your own body language open and professional. But here's the crucial part, and something I learned from my experience with Sarah. Don't try to override these signals by forcing physical closeness. That only intensifies their discomfort and confirms their unstated feelings. Instead, take the high road. As Epictetus would say, no man can rob us of our will. Their physical aversion doesn't need to diminish your self-worth or professional conduct. Remember, you're not imagining things. If your gut tells you someone is physically uncomfortable around you, they probably are. But that's their journey, not yours. The key is to respond with wisdom rather than reaction. Maintain your dignity while giving them the space they're subtly asking for. This isn't about winning them over, it's about maintaining your own peace of mind. And perhaps most importantly, use this as an opportunity for growth. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up, if thou wilt ever dig." Before we move on to our next sign, ask yourself, have you noticed these physical barriers in your own relationships? How did your awareness of them change the dynamic? Remember, the body speaks what the mouth won't say, but how you respond to that unspoken message, that's where your true power lies. Sign 6, the fair weather friend. Absence in times of need. When life hits hard, you discover who truly stands beside you. Not who stands with you in the spotlight, but who remains in your darkest hours. Think about it. How many times have you reached out during a crisis, only to find your messages left on read, your calls going straight to voicemail, your need for support met with radio silence? Let me share something Marcus Aurelius once wrote. In life's storms, observe who remains in your harbor, for they are your true north. I remember a pivotal moment in my own life. I had just lost my job during a company-wide restructuring. The anxiety was crushing, bills piling up, uncertainty looming. What struck me wasn't the job loss itself, but watching my so-called close friends slowly disappear into the shadows. These were the same people who'd been there for every celebration, every triumph. The ones who'd raise their glasses to my successes, share my spotlight moments. But when I needed genuine support, they became masters of the artful dodge. "Sorry, I've been swamped with work. Things are crazy right now. I'll check in with you soon." Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher, warned us about this phenomenon. Prosperity makes friends, adversity tests them. And oh, how right he was. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is crucial for you to understand. When someone vanishes during your time of need, they're not just being inconsiderate. They're showing you exactly where you stand in their list of priorities. Think about it. Have you ever been too busy to help someone you truly cared about? Even if you couldn't be there physically, didn't you at least send a message, make a call, show that you cared in some way? Epictetus puts it perfectly. The true nature of a person is revealed not in their words, but in their actions when you need them most. Let me break this down for you because understanding this pattern is crucial for your emotional well-being. First, notice the timing of their disappearance. Is it only during your challenging moments? Do they resurface when things get better? This isn't coincidence, it's a pattern. Second, observe their behavior with others. Are they too busy for everyone, or just for you? Often you'll find they have plenty of time for those they truly value. But here's where Stoic philosophy offers us a powerful perspective. Their absence isn't a reflection of your worth, it's a revelation of their character. I learned this lesson the hard way, but it transformed how I view relationships. Instead of feeling hurt by their absence, I began to see it as valuable information. It showed me who deserved my energy and who didn't. So what do you do when you identify these fair-weather friends? Don't chase them. Don't explain your pain to those who walked away when that pain was visible. Instead, take note. Readjust your expectations. Redistribute your emotional investment. Remember what Marcus Aurelius taught us. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Don't become bitter. Don't close yourself off to new connections. Instead, use this as an opportunity to strengthen bonds with those who did show up. Look at those who remained. Perhaps it wasn't the crowd you expected, but these are your true allies. The ones who sent that simple thinking of you text. The ones who brought soup when you were sick. The ones who sat with you in silence when words weren't enough. Here's your practical takeaway. Start building your inner circle based on people's behavior during tough times, not good times. Anyone can be there for the celebration. Look for those who show up for the struggles. And remember this: sometimes losing fair-weather friends is not a loss at all. It's the universe clearing your path for authentic connections. If you've experienced this kind of disappearing act from someone you thought was close, you're not alone. But more importantly, you're now equipped to recognize it for what it is. Not a reflection of your value, but a revelation of their character. As we move into our final sign, remember, true friendship, like the principles of Stoicism, stands firm in both storm and sunshine. The question isn't whether people will show their true colors, it's whether you'll have the wisdom to see them when they do. Sign 7. The shadow speaker. Behind the back. Betrayal. There's a special kind of betrayal that cuts deeper than any direct confrontation. It's the whispered words behind closed doors. The conversations that stop when you enter the room. The subtle changes in how people treat you after speaking with someone else. You know that feeling, don't you? When you realize someone you trusted has been painting a different picture of you when you're not around. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it?" This wisdom perfectly captures the essence of gossip, a weapon that wounds both the target and the wielder. Let me share something personal. A few years ago, I confided in a colleague about my struggles with a major project. It was a vulnerable moment, sharing my doubts and fears. Within days, these private thoughts had become office whispers, each retelling more distorted than the last. But here's what's fascinating, and what Seneca understood centuries ago when he said, "The person who gossips to you will gossip about you." What makes this form of betrayal particularly painful isn't just the breach of trust, it's the calculated nature of it. The person maintains a friendly facade to your face while systematically undermining your reputation when you're not present. It's a form of social assassination that leaves no fingerprints. But here's where Stoic philosophy offers us profound guidance. Epictetus teaches us, when another blames you or hates you, or people voice similar criticisms, go to their souls, penetrate inside, and see what sort of people they are. This isn't just ancient wisdom, it's practical psychology. People who engage in behind-the-back betrayal often reveal more about their own insecurities than your flaws. Think about it. Why would someone need to diminish you in secret if they were secure in themselves? Let me break this down into actionable insights. First, recognize the pattern. Does information you've shared in confidence mysteriously become public knowledge? Do people seem to have preconceived notions about situations they weren't directly involved in? These are red flags. But here's the crucial part: your response. When I discovered my colleague's betrayal, my first instinct was to retaliate with my own whisper campaign. But remember what Marcus Aurelius advised. The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Instead, I chose a different path. I had a direct conversation with them, not with accusation but with curiosity. I've noticed that private information I've shared has been circulating. I want to understand what's happening here. This approach often reveals surprising insights about the other person's motivation. Here's what's counterintuitive and what the Stoics understood deeply. The person gossiping about you is often struggling with their own demons. As Epictetus said, people do what they think is right. Understanding this doesn't excuse their behavior, but it gives you power over your response. The question isn't just how to handle the gossiper. It's how to maintain your dignity and peace of mind when you know someone is attempting to diminish you behind your back. Here's what I learned. Document patterns. Keep communications clear and professional. Build direct relationships with key people rather than letting others control the narrative. But most importantly, remember that your character speaks louder than any whispered words. This brings us to a deeper truth. In the age of social media and instant messaging, the line between sharing and gossip has become increasingly blurred. But here's the Stoic test. Would you say it to their face? Would you be proud of your words if they were public? Remember, your reputation isn't built on what others say about you behind your back. It's built on how you conduct yourself in plain sight. As Marcus Aurelius reminded us, be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. The most powerful response to behind-the-back betrayal isn't retaliation. It's living with such authenticity and integrity that gossip becomes obviously false to anyone who knows you directly. Think about your own experience with this type of betrayal. How did it affect you? More importantly, how did you grow from it? Let this be your takeaway. The person who gossips about others to you is showing you who they are, not who their target is. Your power lies not in controlling what others say, but in being so consistently authentic that their words lose their sting. In the end, as the Stoics taught us, true strength isn't in avoiding betrayal, it's in maintaining your integrity regardless of how others behave. After all, what others say behind your back is their path. How you react is yours. Conclusion. As we come to the end of our exploration of these hidden signs of dislike, I want to share a profound truth that Marcus Aurelius once wrote. The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. These signs we've discussed today, from masked mockery to behind-the-back betrayal, they're like shadows in our social landscape. But remember, shadows only exist where there's light. And you, my friend, are that light. Understanding these signs isn't about becoming paranoid or suspicious. It's about developing the wisdom to navigate relationships with clarity and strength. As Epictetus taught us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. You now have the tools to recognize when someone's actions don't align with their words. More importantly, you have the Stoic wisdom to respond with dignity rather than react with emotion. This knowledge isn't just power, it's peace of mind. Think about it. How many times have you doubted your instincts? How often have you brushed aside that gut feeling that something wasn't quite right? Today's insights give you permission to trust yourself, to honor your perceptions, and to set boundaries with confidence. If this video has resonated with you, if you've ever experienced any of these signs, I invite you to share your story. Comment wisdom below and let us know which sign you've encountered and how you handled it. Your experience might just help someone else who's going through the same thing. Remember, the goal isn't to cut people out of your life at the first sign of discord. It's to develop the discernment to invest your energy in relationships that lift you up, not those that subtly tear you down. As Seneca wisely noted, associate with people who make you better. Before we part ways, I want to thank you for joining me on this journey of self-discovery and emotional intelligence. If you found value in these insights, consider becoming part of our growing community of modern Stoics by subscribing to the channel. Hit that like button if you believe in the power of wisdom to transform lives. And remember, your peace of mind is too valuable to be left at the mercy of others' hidden agendas. You have the strength to stand in your truth, the wisdom to choose your relationships carefully, and the power to maintain your dignity in any situation. Until next time, stay strong, stay wise, and most importantly, stay true to yourself. This is the Stoic Mindset, and I'll see you in our next exploration of ancient wisdom for modern life.